Broad daylight, a busy American street, people going about their day, kids playing, cars passing, neighbors watching. Nobody expects trouble when the sun is high, but trouble doesn't always wait for nightfall. This is the story of a group of bikers who thought they owned the road, who thought their laughter and noise made them untouchable. They didn't know that one small act of arrogance, slapping the wrong woman at the wrong time, would flip their world upside down in just 1 second. What happened next shocked everyone on that street, and the memory of it still lingers like a scar. Welcome to Black Community Stories. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch stories. Angela had just left the grocery store, her tote bag filled with bread, milk, and a few fresh vegetables. She was still in her blue hospital scrubs, her shift finally over, her body tired but her spirits steady. The afternoon sun hung hot above the roofs, casting sharp shadows across the sidewalk. Cars moved lazily down the street. A couple of kids kicked a ball across the pavement, and Angela walked with the calm of someone ready to rest after a long morning. Then came the sound. Engines, deep, rough and arrogant. A pack of bikers tore down the road, chrome flashing under the sunlight. Their voices were just as loud as their machines, laughter and whistles cutting through the calm of the neighborhood. Heads turned as they passed, some people stepping aside, others shaking their heads. Angela didn't bother to look. She had seen men like them before, reckless and hungry for attention. She kept walking, her tote bag swinging lightly against her leg. The bikers slowed down when they spotted her. The leader, tall and mean-looking with a patchy beard, revved his engine, the roar bouncing off nearby windows. Another younger one leaned over his handlebars and yelled, "Hey, beautiful!" She ignored them. That silence. They didn't like it. They circled her like a pack testing prey. One spat on the road near her feet. Another barked out a laugh, shaking a bottle of cheap beer that sprayed foam into the street. Angela stopped, her back straight, her face calm, before continuing without a word. And that was when one of them made the mistake. He rode too close. He leaned off his bike, his hand darting out fast. His palm slapped against her butt with a loud, humiliating smack. His crew howled with laughter, their engines roaring louder as if celebrating his boldness. Angela froze. Her tote bag shifted on her shoulder, one apple rolling free and hitting the concrete. Slowly she turned her head. Her eyes locked on them, not with fear, not with shock, but with something that sliced through the noise like a blade. The bikers didn't notice the silence that had fallen. They didn't sense the shift in the air, heavy and tense like the calm before a storm. They thought it was just another joke, another laugh. But they had crossed a line they would regret in less than a second. The biker who touched her didn't know it yet, but the ground was waiting for him. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. The sound of engines filled the afternoon air, but for the first time since they rolled onto the street, it wasn't fun anymore. The laughter was still echoing from the biker who had slapped Angela, but his grin was already starting to falter. He noticed the way she was staring at him. Steady, unblinking, cold. It wasn't the kind of look you brush off. It was the kind that makes a man's stomach twist, though he can't explain why. Angela adjusted the tote bag on her shoulder and took a step closer, not away. The kids who had been kicking a ball down the street stopped, their game forgotten. A man washing his car across the block froze, sponge dripping water onto the pavement. Everybody knew something was about to happen. The bikers' buddies revved their engines harder, trying to drown out the tension with noise. "Relax, it's just a joke," one of them shouted. Another laughed nervously, pointing his bottle in her direction like it was part of the fun. But Angela didn't laugh. She didn't speak either. She just walked, slow and deliberate, her eyes never leaving the one who had touched her. The biker shifted uncomfortably on his seat. He wasn't used to being challenged, not here, not in broad daylight with a full pack behind him. He flexed his hand on the handlebar, trying to act tough, but his chest felt tight. The leader of the group, the man with the patchy beard, noticed the shift and smirked. "Hey, lady," the leader barked. "Why don't you just keep walking, huh? No harm done." Angela stopped. She tilted her head slightly as if she was deciding whether to answer him or not. The street had gone so quiet that even the distant hum of a lawnmower down the block seemed louder than usual. Then she set her bag gently on the ground. The simple act made the biker who had slapped her sit up straighter. Something about the calmness of it felt wrong. You think this is funny? Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Every person watching heard it. Her tone was steady, the kind that doesn't need to rise to command attention. The biker who hit her chuckled, but it came out shaky. Relax, lady. It was a joke. Angela took one more step closer. Jokes don't feel like that. The leader revved his engine again, trying to break the tension. Get back on the sidewalk before you regret it. But by then, the regret had already started. The biker who slapped her gripped his handlebars tight, sweat prickling under his jacket even though the sun was shining. Something in his gut told him he was about to lose more than just pride. And then, 1 second later, the world shifted. The shift happened so fast that the bikers couldn't process it. 1 second the engines were roaring, sunlight bouncing off chrome, and laughter spilling from their mouths, and the next, chaos. Angela's hand moved like lightning. No one on that street expected it. Not the kids, not the man by the car, and certainly not the bikers. Her movements were sharp, precise, like someone who had been trained to act under pressure. She didn't scream. She didn't hesitate. The biker who slapped her was the first to feel it. His body jolted violently, his bike wobbling as his hands slipped from the throttle. His front wheel skidded sideways, the sound of rubber dragging across pavement loud and ugly. He hit the ground hard, his body rolling before he stopped flat on his back. Gasps erupted from the bystanders. The kids clutched each other, eyes wide. The man across the street dropped his sponge into the bucket of soapy water, frozen mid-step. But Angela didn't even look at the fallen biker. Her eyes were still locked on the rest of the pack. The leader cursed and jumped off his bike, boots hitting the asphalt. His jacket swayed as he stormed towards her. "What the hell did you do?" he barked, his voice trying to cover the tremor of unease creeping into his throat. Angela didn't answer. She shifted her stance, calm and steady, like she was rooted into the concrete. Another biker revved his engine and tried to intimidate her, circling tightly. The tires squealed as he leaned too close. Angela's hand shot out again, this time grabbing his wrist as he swung by. He wasn't prepared for the strength in her grip. With a sharp pull, his balance was gone, and the weight of his own bike betrayed him. The machine tipped sideways, crashing to the ground with a metallic thud. He went down with it, groaning in pain. Now the street was buzzing, not just from the remaining engines, but from the energy of a fight no one expected. The bystanders could feel it. This wasn't a woman backing down. This was a woman teaching a lesson. The leader hesitated. His jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. He wasn't used to hesitation. Usually when they rolled into a neighborhood, people scattered. But here was Angela, still standing, still calm, and already 2 of his crew were down. "Get her!" he finally shouted. 3 bikers moved at once. One lunged from his bike with a bottle raised, another tried to rush her from the side, while the third kept circling with his engine roaring. The crowd gasped. Angela didn't flinch. The first swing came at her head, the glass bottle glinting under the sun. She ducked, pivoted, and slammed her elbow into his ribs. He collapsed, the bottle slipping from his hand and shattering across the road. The second tried to grab her from behind, but she turned smoothly, her knee driving into his stomach with brutal precision. He doubled over, gagging for breath. The third thought his speed gave him the upper hand. He revved close, tires screeching, but Angela's hand gripped the handlebars just in time. With a single sharp motion, she yanked him sideways, sending him flying into the dust. Engines sputtered. Boots scraped on the asphalt. The laughter was long gone. The street that had once belonged to the bikers now felt like it belonged to her. The street was no longer a playground for the bikers. It was a battlefield. Their laughter had dried up, replaced with curses and the thud of boots hitting pavement. 4 of them were already down, their bodies sprawled awkwardly on the hot asphalt. Angela hadn't broken a sweat. The leader clenched his jaw as he watched his crew groaning, their pride bleeding out as much as their scraped elbows and bruised ribs. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A woman, alone, unarmed, was dismantling his men in broad daylight in front of witnesses. "Get back up!" he barked at his crew. His voice cracked with anger, but underneath it was fear. He could feel the eyes of the neighborhood on him, burning holes into his back. If word of this got out, his reputation would be in pieces. Angela's stance never shifted. She didn't gloat, didn't taunt. She just stood there, steady as a wall, waiting for the next move. That calmness rattled them more than if she had screamed. Two of the bikers scrambled back to their feet, rage blinding their judgment. One charged straight at her, swinging wild with a heavy chain he ripped from his bike. The other flanked from the side, fists raised. Angela moved like water, smooth flowing, impossible to predict. She sidestepped the chain, letting it whistle past her shoulder. Before the man could recover, she snapped her hand around his wrist and twisted hard. The chain clattered to the ground as he cried out, dropping to one knee. Oh, the second biker tried to take advantage of the moment, throwing a hard right hook. Angela ducked low, her fist snapping into his ribs with a deep thud that made the crowd wince. He staggered back, clutching his side, wheezing. "Damn it!" the leader shouted, veins bulging on his neck. He yanked a knife from his boot, flipping it in his hand. The blade caught the sunlight, throwing a sharp glare across the street. "You think you can humiliate us?" the crowd gasped. The man washing his car whispered a shaky, "Call the cops." But nobody moved. Nobody wanted to miss what was about to happen. Angela's eyes flicked to the blade, then back to the leader. Her expression didn't change. No fear, no panic. Just that same cold, sharp steadiness. "You drew the line," she said quietly, but the words carried across the street like thunder. The leader lunged forward, knife slicing the air. He was fast, mean, practiced, but Angela was faster. She pivoted, her hands snapping against his wrist with brutal precision. The knife slipped free, clinking against the asphalt. Gasps filled the street again. Before he could recover, Angela shoved him back with such force that he stumbled into one of his fallen men, both crashing down in a heap. The leader scrambled up, dirt streaking his face, his pride crumbling with every second. Around him, his crew was in shambles, groaning, clutching bruises, dragging themselves away from the fight. The engines of the bikes still idling on the street sounded weak now, like growls with no bite. Angela bent down slowly, picked up her tote bag, and dusted it off. The simple motion made the bikers flinch, as though she had drawn a weapon. Her voice was calm when she spoke. "Enough!" But the leader's pride was burning hotter than the sun. Enough wasn't in his vocabulary. He spat on the ground, his eyes narrowing with a fury that had nothing left to lose. "This isn't over," he snarled. The crowd held its breath. Everyone could feel it. The final strike was coming. The moment that would decide if this street remembered the bikers or Angela forever. The street had fallen silent, except for the low growl of idling bikes and the shallow breathing of men who had already lost the fight. Every pair of eyes, kids clutching their ball, neighbours peeking from porches, the man frozen by his half-washed car, was locked on the scene. The leader stood, sweat mixing with dust on his face, his pride hanging by a thread. Angela held her tote bag at her side like nothing had happened, her shoulders steady, her gaze unshaken. She wasn't shouting, wasn't boasting. That calm silence made the leader boil inside. He needed to prove something, needed to reclaim the respect that was slipping through his fingers. "Oh, this ain't over," he barked again, his voice cracking as he stepped forward. His crew groaned from the ground, but none dared move to help him. They had already felt what she was capable of. He grabbed a metal pipe from one of the fallen bikes, gripping it so tight his knuckles turned white. He swung it in the air, threatening, trying to work up courage. The clang of metal echoed sharp in the afternoon heat. "Sir." Angela didn't move. She simply set her tote bag back on the ground, adjusting her stance slightly, like a coiled spring waiting for release. "Last warning," she said quietly. Her words weren't loud, but they cut through the air with more weight than his shouts ever could. The leader roared and charged. The pipe came down with all the force he could muster, aiming straight for her head. It never landed. Angela sidestepped with precision, her hand snapping up to catch his wrist mid-swing. Her grip was iron. With a sharp twist, the pipe clattered out of his hand and rang out across the pavement. Before he could recover, she drove her shoulder hard into his chest, sending him sprawling backwards. He hit the ground with a thud that knocked the wind out of him. The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs. The mighty leader of the pack, face pressed to hot asphalt in broad daylight. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Engines rumbled nervously. The kids squeezed tighter to each other. The man across the street whispered, "My God." Then came the sound, the hard crash of metal against concrete. His own bike, still idling too close, tipped sideways with the impact of his fall. It slammed onto him, pinning him hard to the ground. His roar turned into a choked cry as pain exploded through his ribs. Angela didn't move to help. She didn't need to. The message was already written clear across the scene. So, the rest of the bikers scrambled weakly to their feet, dragging their wounded pride and their fallen leader with them. Not one of them dared look her in the eye. They mounted their bikes shakily, engines roaring not with arrogance anymore, but with desperation to get away. The neighborhood watched in silence as the pack that once ruled the street now limped away, beaten not by numbers but by one woman who refused to be disrespected. Angela picked up her tote bag, dusted it off, and adjusted the strap on her shoulder. Without another word, she walked down the street, her pace calm, steady, as if the fight had never happened. The kid's ball rolled gently into the gutter. The man across the street finally moved, shaking his head in disbelief. Neighbors whispered from behind screen doors. The only sound that lingered was the fading roar of engines retreating into the distance, carrying humiliation with them. That afternoon, everyone on that street learned something they would never forget. Respect is demanded, not begged, and crossing the wrong person can make the ground your enemy. The end. Please like and subscribe for more rich stories like this. Comment below. Also, if you really love this video and want to support the channel directly, you can hit that super thanks button below.